Homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, homage to all lineage masters. The supreme, profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta. Now let us study together the Bodhicharyavatara composed by Master Shantideva. Before we formally begin the teaching on the Bodhicharyavatara, I would like to address a couple of points here. The first point, during our study of the Bodhicharyavatara this time, there are both lay practitioners and monastics among us. I think we should have some common arrangements for everyone. What kind of arrangements? Of course, for this teaching on the Bodhicharyavatara, if no obstacles arise, and if my own health permits, that is, if I do not become seriously ill, I estimate it will take about 1 year to complete. It should take roughly 1 year to finish the entire teaching. In the past few days, many Dharma friends have asked through various channels how long this teaching will last. For those who cannot participate in the examination, they need to recite a deity name or mantra 10,000 times. Should this be completed over a lifetime or within a short period? The answer is, of course, within 1 year. This is the general guideline we have set. During this process, as I mentioned before, it is best for those outside Larungar who have registered to study the Bodhicharyavatara and gain some personal experience from it. This experience requires both your own effort and support from others. Both are necessary. Without these two forces, relying only on your own effort would be quite difficult for ordinary people nowadays. If you are especially capable of self-study, perhaps by listening to teachings and reading at home, you may gain some benefit. But what is best is to participate in group study. As for how to study together, we have also made some arrangements. It is best to take the examination or gather privately in groups of about 10 people and meet once a week to discuss what has been taught. Of course, in 1 week, I may have already taught 3 or 4 lectures. To listen to 3 or 4 lectures in 1 day would probably be difficult. But regarding the general content, it is very necessary to discuss together. For lay practitioners outside, it should be like this. And for monastics, monks and nuns in monasteries, you should also discuss with each other according to your own situation. I feel this is necessary. For our Dharma friends here, I also hope that Dharma teachers will tutor once a day. After the class tutoring is completed, as I mentioned before, there are no other required tutoring sessions. However, if you have never studied the Bodhicharyavatara before and don't understand much of the content, it would be best to seek help from your tutors. Then you can find some time to do a simple review or further discussion. I think this is very necessary. So, is there such a situation? I hope you can register soon to see how many people need this. Every Dharma teacher should also take a look. We haven't made any official tutor arrangements, except for the Dharma teachers to teaching class. After I finish teaching, the next day the class Dharma teacher will review my content. This is our teaching method. After that, regarding whether there will be further group tutoring or not, it depends on your own situation. I think in each class, there are definitely some people who have not heard this before, so it's possible that hearing it again from other Dharma teachers will bring you great benefit. I also hope our tutors will teach, even if only one person requires it. You can decide the specific time and location yourselves. These are my instructions for the monastic community. I hope that starting tomorrow, you will implement this. Then in a couple of days, when Dharma teachers gather for a meeting, I need to learn about the general situation. This is the first matter. Now, as I just mentioned, my teaching of the Bodhicharyavatara will probably last about 1 year. Regarding the participants in the study during this time, as I said some time ago, whether you are followers of Vajrayana or Sutrayana, or followers of Chan or Pure Land schools, or even Dharma friends in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, everyone should be able to participate. Everyone should think this way. Some people may think if I attend this teacher's class, I cannot attend that other teacher's class. Or if I participate in this teacher's study group, then I probably can't participate in others. I think such thoughts are not quite right. Of course, it is crucial to have faith and interest in the teaching. If you don't have it, then there is no need to attend. If you do, you can attend any teaching as you wish, just like a student attends many teachers' classes in school. These teachers will not consider this student as only their own student. You attended the physics class and then the chemistry class, so the physics teacher will ignore you. I think school teachers would not do such things, and the student will not say, I only listen to chemistry class and I won't listen to any other teacher's class. I think such a situation won't exist in a proper school. So I think Buddhism is exactly the same. As long as the teacher possesses the proper qualifications, everyone can listen to this teacher's class. The teachers won't be attached in this regard. So for the Bodhicharyavatara teaching this time, personally speaking, I don't have any restrictions. As long as you have faith in Mahayana Buddhism, of course, I myself do not possess the proper qualifications, but sitting in this position, I have to pretend that I am qualified to teach. Otherwise, there's no way to teach, as my own practice is poor. But when you have to teach others, it seems as if you have certain realization, or as if you truly comprehend the meaning of the Dharma. I have to teach with this kind of expression. It's not just me. Probably any teacher, any Dharma instructor has this kind of feeling. So I think for Dharma friends who are studying together with us this time, no matter what kind of person you are, as long as you have some faith in Mahayana Buddhism, it should be fine. So for this first matter, I hope you will complete your study from beginning to end and not have a lot of afflictions in the process. Saying, I am a member of the Bodhicharyavatara study group, so I compete with others. I have jealousy toward that one. I don't wish for this to happen, because this is Mahayana Buddhism, which is like the earth, all embracing, encompassing everything. The spirit of Mahayana Buddhism is just like this. So no other religion in the world can compare to Mahayana Buddhism in its spirit of altruism and selflessness. So as practitioners, we must be open-minded. Without such an attitude, then studying the Bodhicharyavatara may not bring great benefit for you. I sincerely hope that all of us who are studying, whether as individuals or as groups, whether it's Tibetan Buddhism, Chinese Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, or any other tradition or religion, can avoid conflict. Ideally, there should be none at all. Especially within our Buddhist community, pure Buddhism should not have any contradictions or conflicts among us. If we can all approach our studies with this kind of mindset, with this perspective, it's extremely important. These days, I've noticed that some people in big cities are especially prone to jealousy. I've often met such people and heard what they say. Sometimes when I listen to them, I feel that, let alone being Mahayana Buddhists, they don't even meet the standards of true Shravakayana, Hinayana Buddhists. Why is that? Because Shravakayana Buddhists truly have a strong sense of renunciation, wishing to free themselves from the cycle of samsara. This renunciation is very complete and well developed. Yet some of us keep claiming that we are studying Mahayana or even the highest tantric teachings and think we are so remarkable, but in reality, we fall short in basic conduct, in how we treat others, and in how we handle our relationships with people. So I sincerely hope that through the Mahayana teachings, even though as ordinary people we all have various afflictions in our minds, as well as habitual tendencies and obvious negative emotions, we should do our best through studying the Dharma to adjust and transform these negative tendencies within us. I think this is necessary. This is the first point I want to make. In other words, as we study, we must get along harmoniously and peacefully. This is essential. Our study period will be about 1 year. We'll set this as our time frame. For those Dharma friends who are studying the Bodhicharyavatara, if all the necessary conditions are present, I'm also considering this. For some young people with good wisdom and understanding, we can also offer the opportunity to study Pramana, one of the 5 great treatises of Tibetan Buddhism. And if there are no other obstacles in the future, we can also provide teachings on the hidden meanings of emptiness in the 5 great treatises of Tibetan Buddhism, which is the Abhisamaya Lankara, expounded by the 10th ground Bodhisattva Maitreya. If the conditions are right, we can offer and teach it as well. Of course, I can't make any promises because things don't always go as we wish. There is always a gap between our plans and how things actually turn out. So as long as the conditions are right, I think I will guide everyone in this way. Why is that? Because not only pure practitioners in monasteries, but also people living in cities should have teachers and Dharma friends to support and guide them. I think this is very important, no matter which tradition you follow. It's best to have some Dharma teachings to remind you every day. If you don't have this, then the people around you, the environment you live in, and the education you receive, and all the knowledge you acquire are just worldly matters without any real meaning. From the perspective of Mahayana Buddhism, these trivial matters are truly meaningless. So in this state of meaninglessness, your decades of human life will quickly slip away. Wouldn't that be a real pity? So for those of you living in the world, it's best to set aside some time each day to receive Buddhist teachings and education. This is how it should be. If not, as I mentioned before, many young people in the cities never get the chance to leave noisy, chaotic environments and go to a quiet place, to somewhere with green mountains, clear waters, birds singing, and flowers blooming. Do they ever have the opportunity to practice in such peaceful places? In reality, most likely not in this lifetime. If that's the case, then living in a big city, just having the title of Buddhist or taking refuge or saying, I've been a Buddhist for so many years, doesn't mean your mind stream is truly in accord with the Dharma and the principles taught in the Dharma. How much do you really understand? I see that many people in big cities don't understand Buddhist teachings at all. A significant number of people have no real understanding of Buddhism. As a result, in their words and actions, many things that go against the law of karma happen everywhere, all the time. That's why in teaching the Bodhicharyavatara this time, our aim is to help more people truly understand the essence of Buddhism. This is our sincere and urgent hope. As we study the Bodhicharyavatara together, I have a request for those studying outside the valley. As I mentioned earlier, if you don't have some kind of pressure or accountability, it's likely that your studies won't progress very far. At first, you might think, it's fine, I'll just read on my own. But as time goes on, it often ends up unfinished, starting strong, but ending weak. That's why it's best for everyone to participate in group study. Of course, it's not realistic to gather every single day, but at least set aside 2 hours each week to gather and interact with others. You can share how your studies are going and learn from each other. With this kind of interaction, everyone gains motivation and support. Moreover, since ancient times, we have accumulated a lot of experience in Buddhist study. Through long periods of practice and refinement, we've learned what works best. So what is this experience? As I just mentioned, we need both the support of others and our own effort. If you lack this, without mutual supervision and encouragement, without opportunities to support each other, then studying alone, you might be diligent for a month or two, but after that, your motivation will likely fade. And before you know it, your studies have stalled. That would be a real pity. So for those studying outside, my requirement is that every week each group should meet and discuss what you've learned. Go over the week's material, whether it's a few classes that you've listened to or read on your own. Then come together and study as a group. This is really necessary, and I hope you will do it this way. This is the first requirement I have for our Bodhicharyavatara study. Of course, if you really can't meet these conditions, you can still listen to the teachings, but it may not bring much benefit to your mind stream. I want to make this clear from the start. Otherwise, later you might say, I've listened for over a year, but I don't feel any real change in myself. Don't blame us and don't blame the Dharma. Every practitioner among us should use various skillful means to transform their own mind stream. Without real transformation, it won't work. On this point, think about the great masters of the past. Why did they establish Buddhist institutes? Why did they emphasize collective study? In any school in the world, whether it's elementary, middle, or university, even for graduate or doctoral students, everyone needs to gather and study together. Through collective learning and education, there is great strength and benefit. This is something we can see even in worldly education. So when studying Buddhism, don't think that just because you receive an empowerment or blessing today, you will immediately attain realization or enlightenment. Don't think like that. Of course, it's a nice thought to wish for realization in this very life, but I think it's just a beautiful dream. If it could really happen, that would be wonderful. But since ancient times, it's always been true that practice depends on oneself, and personal cultivation is not a matter of just a day or two. It requires long-term training for your mind stream to truly change. For example, if someone goes to university just registering for classes today or attending one day of lectures, do you think that's enough to make a difference? If you truly want to become knowledgeable, that knowledge is accumulated bit by bit through your own effort over time. By the time you become truly wise and learned, it's the result of years of accumulated wisdom. It's the same with Dharma practice. Our study of Buddhism actually goes beyond worldly knowledge. Does that mean you don't need to accumulate any wisdom at all? Just getting a refuge certificate from a teacher today, receiving an empowerment or blessing, and then suddenly awakening tomorrow. If it were really that easy, it would be wonderful. That would truly surpass all worldly knowledge. But are there really such sharp faculties? If someone can't even master basic worldly subjects, how could they possibly grasp such profound Buddhist teachings? Can you really attain enlightenment through such simple means? You should reflect on this yourself. No matter what Dharma you study, it's best not to deceive yourself or others. There's no need for that. That's why I asked everyone to study together at the scheduled times. That's the first point. The second point is this. For all the fourfold assembly of Dharma friends listening to the Bodhicharyavatara this time, I have arranged for everyone to practice together, including myself, even though I am very busy. Every day I have all kinds of translations to do on Sutra and Tantra piled up like a mountain. There are countless matters inside and outside the academy arising one after another every day. On top of that, my health is not good, and there are all sorts of other issues that really take a toll on my body and mind. But I think if we don't make use of our time now, if we don't cultivate bodhicitta, we may never accomplish it. So starting the day after tomorrow, everyone here should set aside half an hour each morning to practice bodhicitta. As for the method of cultivating bodhicitta, of course, it's explained later in the text. But if we haven't covered it yet and you want to practice on your own, you can refer to teachings like the words of my perfect teacher or finding rest in the nature of mind, or other teachings on the benefits of bodhicitta. You can practice in any way you like. As for specific methods, I'll teach them in detail later. Patrul Rinpoche's works also contain methods for cultivating bodhicitta. I'll explain these as well. So what's the reason for this practice? I think many of us now, if we don't properly cultivate bodhicitta, if bodhicitta hasn't arisen in our mind stream, then no matter what we do, it doesn't count as true Mahayana practice. Whether you are a monastic, a lay person, or anyone else who received teachings through various channels. And for those outside who hear these teachings, I hope you will also spend half an hour each day cultivating bodhicitta from that day on. Of course, some of you here may think, I'm already so busy. We already have long classes every day, plus memorization and other tasks. There's just no time for this. You might think that way, but I've calculated my classes, including teaching and recitation, take about 2 hours, maybe a little more. That should be manageable. It should be possible. Other Khenpo's classes also take about 2 hours, and other Dharma teachers' classes are about 2 hours as well. Plus there's about an hour and a half of tutoring altogether. That's about 8 or 9 hours. In a 24-hour day, if you sleep 7 or 8 hours, you still have about 8 hours left. If that's the case, you should set aside 4 hours for memorizing and reading. That still leaves you with 4 hours. You can do the math. Yes, you don't need to laugh. It's really like this. Many of us now don't manage our time well at all, and time just slips away. My class is 2.5 hours. Other teachers may have 2 classes, 2.5 hours each. That's 5 hours, plus a Khenpo's class and another teacher's class, each an hour and a half, so that's 8 hours in total. After 8 hours of study, you sleep for 8 hours, and you still have 8 hours left. 3 times 8 is 24, right? You can do the math. So in these 8 hours, of course, as beings in the desire realm, we need some rest. Let's say you rest for 1 hour a day. Then you spend 2 or 3 hours eating and doing other things. If you use 3 hours for that, you still have 4 hours left. So from those 4 hours, take out just half an hour and use the remaining 3.5 hours for other things. It should be possible. Of course, some Dharma friends here may start memorizing at 4:30 in the morning. If you do group recitation, I've considered that too. You can memorize together in the shrine hall, then at 6 o'clock. You don't have to leave. Everyone can just stay in the hall, just like in some meditation halls in Han Buddhist monasteries, where hundreds of people sit together and then begin sitting meditation. This is also fine. So during our half hour, you can meditate in any way you like, from 6 to 6:30 in the morning. We won't start tomorrow since you may need some time to prepare. So starting the day after tomorrow, you must begin this practice. If you want to follow my advice, just do this. It won't affect your other activities. No matter how diligent you are in study and contemplation, some may even study so hard they forget to eat and sleep, thinking there's no time left. But if we just cling to words and phrases every day, then at the time of death, there won't be even a trace of bodhicitta in our mind. Stream Dharma is not about speaking well or being eloquent. It's not like that. You must have genuine experience in your own heart. This is extremely important. But where does this experience come from? It must come from your own practice. Or perhaps you are exceptionally gifted, and the teacher's blessing brings instant realization. This is possible. But for everyone else, you must put in the effort yourself and find ways to truly experience the essence of Buddhism in your mind stream. Without such practice, it's simply not possible. Last year, when we studied Finding Rest in the Nature of Mind, we also quoted the Avatamsaka Sutra. At that time, we discussed 3 analogies. The first one is, if you only teach Buddhism to others without practicing it yourself, it's like a deaf person playing music for others. The music may be beautiful, but he can't hear it at all. Not practicing the Dharma is just like this. That's the first analogy. The second analogy is, it's like the boatmen or ferrymen on the ocean, who often ferry many people safely across the sea, but it's very possible that they themselves may drown in the ocean. Such people are the same. Those of us who don't practice the Dharma are just like this. There's another analogy. It's like talking about how delicious candy is without ever tasting it yourself. Similarly, if you don't actually practice the Dharma, no matter how well you talk about it, you'll never experience the true sweetness of the Dharma in your heart. You can't taste its flavor. So I think if we don't actually practice Mahayana Buddhism now, many people may think, I'll practice later, but our human life is extremely brief. This human life, you could say, is like white clouds drifting in the sky, appearing and disappearing in an instant. The truly terrifying messengers of Yama with fierce faces are coming toward us step by step. How will we face them? When we are dying, it may seem we haven't planted any virtuous roots in the Mahayana Dharma. The Dharma must be used to plant virtuous roots in our own mind stream. Why does Chan Buddhism always emphasize planting the Vajrabodhi seed? Why? Because it's true. If you don't meditate, if you don't put effort into your own mind stream, then no matter how well you speak or explain in this life, no matter how outstanding your academic research is, when death comes, especially if you haven't made good aspirations, it's very likely you'll forget it all in your next life. So I think when we practice together, the blessings and strength are much greater. I will also start the day after tomorrow. I'm not just saying this, I have truly made this aspiration in my actions. Ideally, whether you are going out or staying at home, I think by 6 a.m. most Dharma friends here have already started their practice. By then, you're already engaged in study and meditation, so I think for those outside at 6 a.m., you probably haven't gone to work yet. At 6 a.m., most chores at home probably haven't started yet, so you should be able to make time. Of course, in some schools or monasteries, it may not be convenient at that time. If it's inconvenient, then please choose another time that works for you. It's best if you practice for half an hour each day. If you don't even do that, then in this lifetime, you've only formed a karmic link with the Dharma. You won't experience the true merit or the feeling of bodhicitta. You might never taste it in your own mind stream, and yet practicing like this will bring great merit, truly great in the sutra that proclaims definitive suchness. The Buddha said the same thing to Ananda. He asked whether hearing the Dharma for 10 great eons brings great merit. Shariputra replied, very great. But the merit from meditating on ultimate truth for even a finger snap of time far surpasses that. So I think during this half hour, on the one hand, some of you may feel a bit unaccustomed at first, especially since many of us have let our minds wander for so long. If you've never meditated before, it may feel difficult, but in any case, this time we must all make the effort. Without effort, we'll always follow our old habits. If we just follow our habits, we won't change. There won't be any real transformation through Mahayana Dharma. So we should impose some discipline on ourselves. I'm not forcing you. If you really don't want to, you can sleep in. I won't know. I don't have clairvoyance. Whether anyone gets up or not, it makes no difference to me if I can practice I'm the one who benefits. I think I should practice in the morning. Lately, our evening classes have been ending late, but no matter what, maybe I'm the one with the hardest schedule. After teaching at night, I still have to hear oral presentations, Q&A, and meetings. Then I handle various affairs and receive guests. After I finally return home, sometimes I still read and chant a little, so my time is quite tight. Still, I thought, even I, with this fragile body, made this aspiration. I think all of you are healthier than I am, and probably smarter too, yet you focus only on eating, drinking, and sleeping. That's not what a meaningful life is about. I think that's not the true value of life. Many people in the cities spend all their time on eating, drinking, and similar things. Some get caught up in things that have no real meaning, like playing mahjong, drinking, smoking, and so on. In our world today, even educated people can't accept this meaningless life. So if you struggle to get up early, I think you can set your alarm for 5:55. Yes, 5:55, 3 5s, and use that to wake up. Splash cold water on your face, and right in bed, sit for half an hour, and practice bodhicitta together. The merit of bodhicitta is immense. Even this intention alone brings great merit. Let's all pray together to His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, praying that bodhicitta may quickly arise in our mind streams. Visualize this as you meditate. For now, just follow the practice methods you've learned before. Just cultivate bodhicitta within yourself. No need to add other practices. Just focus on Mahayana bodhicitta. As for how to practice, for now you can practice the merits of bodhicitta or apply any other related content. For example, the 4 immeasurables and so on. All these can be practiced. In time, I'll teach more. I will teach more in further sessions. In short, today, everyone should make this aspiration to practice. Visualize the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, especially your root guru, and make this aspiration every morning. Start with a 1-year commitment. Those who can make the vow, raise your hands. If you can't, that's okay. Starting the day after tomorrow, our routine gets more intense. Of course, if you're sick, if you're seriously ill, some leniency is understandable. But if you're faking it, that won't be accepted. This is the second point I wanted to discuss today. So I think, no matter who we are, for those of us practicing in quiet places, our outer and inner conditions are quite favorable. But for people living in big cities, it's much more difficult. Still, I hope you can treat this as the most important thing in your life. Some people think that gaining wealth is most important, others value status or fame, and some chase after worldly awards thinking they are meaningful. But in reality, from a long-term perspective, these things have no real value. The most precious thing is having a human life and encountering the Dharma. And within us, the genuine wish to benefit others arises. This kind of mind is incredibly rare, even in countless eons. It can't be bought, no matter how much wealth you have. But bodhicitta arises only through our own effort. Without making effort, it will not arise on its own. So I sincerely hope everyone will take the practice of bodhicitta seriously. Today we are studying the beginning section of the Bodhicharyavatara. Traditionally, great masters always begin by explaining the proper way to listen to Dharma teachings. At first I thought, we already covered this in the detailed commentary on the Bodhicharyavatara and also in the words of my perfect teacher. So for many of you here, this is already familiar and doesn't need to be emphasized. But for others, during Dharma teaching, some may have the wrong motivation or improper behavior. So I'll briefly emphasize this here. First of all, your intention when hearing the Dharma is extremely important. If your motivation is not correct, even if you work very hard and practice for a long time, the results will not be ideal. So whatever Dharma you practice or listen to, or whatever you do, your initial motivation is extremely important. Your motivation should definitely be free from attachment, anger, and ignorance. That's very important too. So first, there are wholesome, unwholesome, and neutral motivations. For example, if you're attending this class on the Bodhicharyavatara, some may attend with wrong motives like seeking money or personal gain or for fame and status. That's not good. In some Dharma centers in the past, people used Dharma events as opportunities to make money or act improperly. Such purposes are really wrong. If you engage in these wrong things, it's better to do them through worldly means, not the Dharma. Never use Mahayana Dharma to cheat others or gain wealth. That's clearly wrong. Then there's also a neutral mindset. What does that mean? It's like everyone else is listening, so I'll go too, not really thinking about benefiting others or yourself, just following the crowd. If others are listening, you just go along. This kind of mindset during listening is called neutral motivation. And as we just discussed, it's best to avoid this neutral state when listening to Dharma. The best way is to listen with a wholesome, noble motivation. There are many ways to give rise to a virtuous motivation. Generally, there are three kinds of mind: inferior, medium, and superior motivation. So what is an inferior motivation? For example, listening to the Bodhicharyavatara, hoping to gain something from it, like happiness, long life, health, or other worldly benefits or wealth and fame. If you listen with this kind of motivation, with the blessings of the three jewels, you might actually get those results. These are the power of Mahayana teachings. But such a motivation cannot be the cause of liberation. Why is that? Because liberation must arise from renunciation and bodhicitta. Just like a flower needs a seed to bear fruit, in the same way, to attain liberation, there must be the seed of bodhicitta for the fruit of liberation to grow. So we call the motivation described earlier a worldly motivation. It's also known as the motivation of inferior capacity. Listening with this kind of mind may bring human and godly benefits and temporary happiness. But ultimate results like Buddhahood or Arhathood or liberation from samsara cannot be obtained. This is the first type of motivation. What is the second type of motivation? The second type is, I want to attain the state of an arhat, or I want to realize nirvana. With this kind of mindset, I listen to the Bodhicharyavatara just for my own liberation, not caring about others. I just want to achieve my own liberation or enlightenment. With this kind of intention, I listen to the Dharma. Of course, even listening in this way, the blessings of the three jewels and the Dharma are still inconceivable, and it still has a certain power for you. But this kind of motivation is called the motivation of medium capacity in Buddhism. Even though some liberation is achieved, it is still the Hinayana path. It cannot be called the supreme or highest liberation. Why is that? Although Shravaka practitioners realize emptiness, which is remarkable, they lack strong, great compassion. Some of you asked about this yesterday. Why do some arhats' compassion seem weaker than even that of bodhisattvas on the stage of aspiration? It's because their self-centeredness is still very strong. So even when they attain realization, their compassion remains weak. Therefore, such liberation is not ultimate. This is clearly stated in many treatises, especially in the Lotus Sutra. So I won't elaborate further here. The best is the third type, the motivation of superior capacity. You should understand what this superior motivation is. This time, I'm not listening for myself, not for happiness or health in this life, nor for a good rebirth in Sukhavati, nor for any kind of joyful and pleasant future life. That is not my purpose in listening to the Dharma. All sentient beings, as vast as space, have been my kind parents since beginningless time. Now these poor beings are lost in the vast ocean of suffering. I must do everything I can, listening to the sublime nectar of Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings, and with these teachings, bring all beings to liberation. So they may attain perfect, unsurpassed awakening. Listening with this kind of motivation is truly rare and precious. Even if it arises for just a single instant, its merit is vast and immeasurable. Such merit is boundless. This is why we study the Bodhicharyavatara, because the blessings of this text are truly vast. I mentioned this yesterday. All the great masters of Tibetan Buddhism have always held this text in the highest regard. You can look into history, see which great master or lineage did not value it. So why do so many Mahayana practitioners place such importance on the Bodhicharyavatara? It's because by relying on this text, bodhicitta can arise within us. In the past, Patul Rinpoche, In Taiwan, the way his name is addressed is slightly different from the current Chinese transliteration. What did he focus on preaching throughout his life? He spread the teachings of the Bodhicharyavatara. Every monastery he visited, he taught this text. You can see this clearly in his biography. There were 2 books he never left. One of them was the Bodhicharyavatara. He carried it with him his whole life because the blessings of this teaching are incredibly powerful. He said this in one of his teachings. If bodhicitta hasn't arisen in your mind stream, even a 9-year retreat on Supreme Tantra still can't even plant the seed of liberation. You can't even plant that seed. He said this very clearly. So nowadays, all these outer forms and appearances, I don't think they matter much. What's the most important thing at the very beginning? We must generate relative bodhicitta in our mind stream. Of course, it's best if ultimate bodhicitta arises. We start with relative bodhicitta. With it, any virtuous deeds we do in the future will be easier to accomplish. If bodhicitta isn't arisen in our hearts and we're stuck in self-interest, even if we're busy every day trying to spread the Dharma, how much true benefit do we gain deep inside? How many Mahayana liberation seeds do we actually plant? We may never know. That's why I think all generations of great masters value this text. One of Patrul Rinpoche's foremost disciples, Orgyen Tenzin Norbu, he was the one who taught most effectively. I translated his biography before. Some of you may remember it clearly. He taught the Bodhicharyavatara over 200 times in his life. Just think about that, over 200 times. That's truly remarkable. I'm not exaggerating here. You can check his biography for yourself. He really gave that many teachings publicly. That's how he spent his entire life promoting the Dharma. Years ago, around 1998, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche once shared some words to all his fourfold disciples. He said, "Since this body is impermanent, as for me, in my later years, I will teach a few of the most essential scriptures." There was a 4-year plan. In the first year, he taught us the Sutra of the 100 Deeds to help us understand the principles of cause and effect. Mainly to help us arouse the renunciation of the Hinayana path. That was the teaching in the first year. Then in the second year, he taught a great commentary on the Bodhicharyavatara to help bodhicitta genuinely arise in everyone's mind stream. He encouraged everyone to generate bodhicitta through this. In the third year, he taught the Guyagarbha Tantra. And in the fourth year, he taught the highest Yoga Tantra. So essentially, 4 years earlier, His Holiness had planned it all out. He concluded the final phase of his Dharma activities in this way. So I think there are now tens of thousands of his lineage disciples across China. Sometimes you should look at how our guru, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, valued this text in this very life, how much importance he placed on the Bodhicharyavatara. Also, when he taught this text, he said, for other transmissions, he sometimes couldn't remember clearly when received them. But he remembered very clearly when he received the transmissions of this text. When he was 14, he received teachings on this text as well as the oral transmission for it. It was passed to Lala Sonam Chodrup by Patrul Rinpoche, the author of Illuminating the Path to Liberation, a commentary on the aspiration of Sukhavati. Then Lala Chodrup passed it to Khenpo Sonam Rinchen. Then Khenpo Sonam Rinchen gave it to His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok. At 14, he began to study the Bodhicharyavatara. So as our root guru, Choje, started learning it at 14. He started at 14 studying the Bodhicharyavatara. And near the end of his life, he was also teaching this text. So I think as followers, we should take the Bodhicharyavatara as our most supreme instruction. We should adjust our own minds. That's quite necessary, I think. Back to the motivation I mentioned earlier when listening to the Dharma. Maybe I've talked too much. But when we listen to the Dharma, we must have the wish to benefit others. When listening to Dharma or doing anything, this is essential. This is a matter of motivation. While cultivating motivation, we must avoid certain faults. We've heard about these before. For example, there are the 3 defects, also 6 stains and 5 wrong ways of remembering. We must abandon all these when listening to the Dharma. So what are the 3 defects? I'm sure you all know. The first is the defect of inattention. When we listen to the Dharma, we must stay fully engaged and focused on the Dharma words from the teacher. We shouldn't be careless or let our mind wander elsewhere. Otherwise, it's like trying to pour water into an upside-down bowl. The water just pours off, nothing enters. Right now, some people outside, they wear earphones listening to the Dharma, but also listen to music. This kind of distraction, can that work? Can you truly absorb the Dharma like this? Definitely not. So when we listen to the Dharma, we must be very focused. We listen respectfully to what the teacher is saying. That's the first issue. If you lack that, it's the first fault, not listening with focused attention. The second issue is that the mind must be focused. If the mind isn't focused, then the Dharma spoken by the teacher won't be absorbed in your own mind stream if your mind remembers nothing at all. It's like placing a basin here, but the bottom is already leaking. No matter how much water you pour in, it all leaks out. Nothing remains. So when you're receiving a teaching, no matter what environment you're in, you must listen seriously. When listening, try to remember each sentence. Engrave the Dharma in your heart. You must remember it deeply. I've seen many people outside receiving teachings by watching videos or DVDs of Dharma teachers. They eat while watching, talk while watching, almost like watching worldly videos. They treat them just like any other worldly media. If your attitude is like that, then you won't gain any true benefit in your mind stream. Of course, I'm not saying this happens in our academy. Please understand clearly what I mean. Sometimes when I mention things like the internet or television, when I mention these things, our rules here are extremely strict. Everyone should know if you break those rules, you could be expelled. So be very mindful. As for lay people, you have no choice but to rely on these tools now. If you rely on a TV or the internet, for example, and you listen while doing other things, obviously the result won't be good or efficient. Why? Because with the Dharma, if you miss the earlier part, you won't understand the true meaning. In the middle, you might catch a bit out of context. That's definitely not good. It's incomplete. So I think those who rely on technology to receive Dharma teaching should, first, it's best to sort out all worldly matters, be it home responsibilities or work duties, finish all of them, and afterwards set aside half an hour just for the class. Don't involve other people, especially those who don't follow the Dharma. You should create a quiet environment or listen with genuine Dharma friends. Focus your mind and listen to the recording or watch your DVD or VCD with full attention. In that case, you may gain the true value and benefit of the Dharma. I've seen many lay practitioners whose attitude while listening or watching is not in accord with the Dharma. In such cases, it's just a form of enjoyment or a ritual formality. Whether they truly receive the blessings and benefits of the Dharma is hard to say. As I just said, the mind must be focused. Without focus, it becomes a defect. There's the third defect, called the defect of mixed afflictions. What does this mean? It means when listening to the Dharma, we develop jealousy, anger, or attachment, or we constantly give rise to all kinds of discursive and conceptual thoughts, and then chat meaninglessly with others, saying things of no value, letting the mind wander. This is called the fault of mixed afflictions. So when listening to the Dharma, it's best to set aside all other matters because this is the time for receiving the Dharma. When listening to the Dharma, we should do so properly and sincerely. Listening in this way brings merit. So it's best for each person to correct their conduct and attitude. These are the 3 defects that must be completely avoided. Then there are 6 stains. The first is when arrogance arises in our mind streams. Second, lacking faith. Third, lacking aspiration. Fourth, our mind gets scattered outwardly. Fifth, we turn inward and retreat into drowsiness or dullness. Sixth, we feel weary or bored. These 6 stains should be clearly recognized and avoided. For example, when listening to the Dharma, it's best not to have arrogance at all. But some people might think, I can teach the same way as the teacher or tutor. When others are teaching, they show a very arrogant attitude. This is not correct. In the past, His Holiness and many great masters, including Mifam Rinpoche, who was an emanation of Manjushri, as well as Je Tsongkhapa and Sakya Pandita, when they listened to teachings from others, they did so with deep respect. Because it is the Dharma you listen to. It's inappropriate if you don't listen with respect and think too highly of yourself. Some people might think, I've already read and listened to the Bodhicharyavatara, but truthfully, you may not really understand it. I remember at our Buddhist academy, I received this teaching from His Holiness 4 times, including both commentary and root verses. When I first came, I also received a version from Khenpo Gador and from other Khenpos as well. Altogether, I've received the Bodhicharyavatara 7 or 8 times from different masters, and I've taught it in Chinese 3 times. If I include teaching this text in Tibetan, perhaps 4 or 5 times. Roughly that many times. But even now, if someone, especially a master I have faith in, is going to teach, I would still gladly listen. Why? Because I still don't fully understand many of the teachings, yet some less capable consider themselves masters of the Bodhicharyavatara, only because they have just read the commentary once. Just the other day, someone even asked me, I've read your commentary already, can I skip the teachings? I said, of course you can. It was a call from someone outside. But in my heart, I believe just reading one commentary is definitely not enough. If reading one commentary were sufficient, we have over 20 commentaries. In Tibetan, I myself have read a fair number of them. As I mentioned yesterday, there are about 8 to 10 such commentaries in the Kangyur. If simply reading them once would be sufficient, then why would the great masters of the past teach them one by one in person? The truth is, our arrogance arises within our own mind stream without us even noticing. Therefore, when listening to the Dharma, we must completely renounce our arrogance. This is very important. It is the first stain. The second stain is a lack of faith. Without faith, it won't work. We must have genuine faith in the Dharma. Just as Master Yingguang clearly stated, all the Dharma is obtained through faith alone. The third stain is a lack of aspiration for the Dharma. If you have no aspiration, then not only the Dharma, you won't achieve anything, even in worldly matters. If you have no interest at all in something, how could you possibly achieve it? It's impossible. Sometimes we should reflect on how the great masters of the past endured countless hardships to seek the Dharma and gain realization. But now, with our conditions so favorable, we should have aspiration for obtaining the Dharma. This is the third one. The fourth is, when listening to the Dharma, our mind must not wander outward. As ordinary beings, we haven't cut off the seeds of attachment to the five sense objects. So when external stimulants appear, our minds immediately chase after them. This way, we cannot receive the Dharma's blessings because we're distracted by the external world. This isn't appropriate. So when receiving teachings, we must focus wholeheartedly. The fifth problem is inward withdrawal, meaning some people nod off or get drowsy during teachings. You can tell from their appearance. They look dazed and unclear. If you're in such a state while listening to the Dharma, can you receive any benefit from it? Definitely not. And this isn't just about the Dharma. Even in worldly schools, when students fall asleep, the teacher would likely pick up a stick and give them a knock. And the last issue, the sixth, is weariness or boredom. When listening to Dharma teachings, we should have endurance. Sometimes the teaching may go slightly over time. Like today's session, for example, may extend by 5 minutes. When that happens, if we immediately start thinking, why isn't class over yet? Why is the teacher still speaking? Then this sort of mental boredom has no merit at all. So when the guru is teaching, whether in summer or winter, we must not get bored. I'm truly impressed by many of you here at the Academy. You persevere in attending tutoring sessions every day. Even during freezing winter, you stand outside reciting texts. I heard that in the monks' area, some people are reciting under streetlights. Even early in the morning, many are reciting. And in the nuns' area, many are reciting in the mornings. When it comes to seeking the Dharma, this kind of discipline is necessary. This is something that brings great joy to the heart. We must not feel bored. Those are the 6 stains I just mentioned. Next, there are the 5 wrong ways of remembering. You should all be familiar with these 5. They are holding the meaning but not the words, holding the words but not the meaning, confusing the order, and holding things in reverse, and then holding without understanding. So 5 in total. First, holding the meaning but not the words. This means grasping some meaning, but having no knowledge of the actual words or lines. Some people say things like, what's the point of memorizing texts? As long as I understand the content, that's enough. But in truth, understanding depends on the words and phrases. Without the proper words, you won't be able to express the teaching clearly. For example, some of our students here have memorized several treatises. When they quote scripture, they can deliver the complete original wording flawlessly. If you haven't memorized it, you may represent the general meaning, but it won't be complete. So the words are essential. Then there are those who cling to words but not meaning. They take great interest in poetic style, phonetics, or linguistics. They really enjoy studying that sort of thing. So they grasp the wording but completely miss the intended meaning. If you only get the words but not the meaning, it's meaningless, just like memorizing lyrics. The third kind is mixing up the order of the text, like confusing top and bottom parts of a text. In original sutras and treatises, the sequence is precise and deliberate. But if we end up placing earlier lines after later ones and later lines before earlier ones, it is called holding out of order. The fourth is holding without understanding. In the teachings, there are 4 levels of intent, such as secret meanings, definitive and expedient teachings, but we fail to grasp the true intention behind them. This is called holding without truly understanding. The fifth is holding in reverse. You probably know this one too. The Dharma is meant to cut through the root of afflictions, but instead one sees it as a source of worldly happiness or gain. That's what's meant by holding in reverse. So today I've given you a simple introduction. When we listen to Dharma teachings, we must listen properly and correctly. Avoid the 3 defects, 6 stains, and 5 wrong ways of remembering. Rely on the 4 metaphors. See the Guru as a doctor, the Dharma as medicine, yourself as a sick patient, and earnestly practicing Dharma as the process of healing. These are the metaphors for receiving the Dharma as described in the Avatamsaka Sutra. If we listen with this thinking, then our Dharma study and practice will be most complete. I can't emphasize the rules of listening to the Dharma every time I teach, but still, no matter where or when we receive teachings, we must listen properly in accordance with the Dharma. This is very important. All right, we'll stop here for today.
Om